Hello, welcome to today's edition of Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston. I'm the national spokesperson for the Route 664 radio station and also socialsecharity.org, the website socialsecharity.org, and the Endow American Network Foundation. Our purpose is to create human kindness through endowment. We use the theory of social secharity to do that, where 664 equals E squared. E is endowment squared. You can create an endowment for yourself and leave that behind to endow a charity of your choice. That's the power of 664. It's a real power of love for yourself to create income that you can use to live on in the future, create some security for yourself while using favorable tax benefits that the tax code gives you. The Congress was very wise in their infinite wisdom. They gave us 664 many years ago to help us build the charitable wealth in the country and to help you pay less tax. The bargain that they made is if you leave something to charity, when you die, you'll have lower taxes while you're alive. Most people don't even know that exists. My guest today is a tax person who has been in the tax industry for a long time. And I call it a tax industry because doing tax returns is a way of creating revenue for businesses, and has been very successful for a lot of organizations. My guest today is John Hewitt, as the Hewitt and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. How are you, John?
I'm incredible. Thank you.
I know that you've kind of phased out of that, but in this climate today where we have inflation the way it is, with regard our cost of living is going up constantly, and taxes become a much more important aspect of that. Do you miss the tax planning? You miss the tax completing tax forms? Was that your favorite thing to do?
I when I was in college, I loved doing taxes, but since then, I founded two public companies that have a combined 10,000 houses. So the only tax return I do is one on October 15th for myself. So
Okay.
every year I do it on October 15th, but no more tax return for the public since I founded public companies back in the 90s.
So, tell me a little bit about your self. How did you begin how did you get the idea that you wanted to do tax returns to build what you built, and then what you changed?
It was my dad's idea. My dad was a frustrated entrepreneur. I was born when he was a freshman at Michigan State. Before he graduated, he had three other children, and he never got a chance to be able to become self-employed. And by the time I was in college, he decided it would be a good time to help, that I could help. And so we were living in a suburb of Buffalo, and I was going to the University of Buffalo, and the suburb we lived in didn't have any H&R Block office. And he got the idea to buy a franchise, and he called them up and said, "We'd like to buy a franchise." And they said, "Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to open a company store in that suburb this tax season. Why don't you have your son take our tax course? Maybe he could work for us." I took the tax course in November and December, loved it. And one of my many blessings is before I was 20 years old, I found out what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
That's an amazing thing. Yeah, that you found something you enjoyed and like working at. Yeah, so there's a little difference. It's a tax preparing firm. Is that correct? Rather than a CPA firm?
Yes, I worked at H&R Block for 12 years. Then I founded Jackson Hewitt for 15 years. And then I was 20 years at Liberty Tax Service. All of them are focused on income tax, and they do a little accounting, but 98% of their income comes from income tax preparation.
Do you think that most people even know what the amount of taxes that they pay?
I would say that not 1 in 20 know that.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
I think people are, if they're not skilled at something, they tend not to pay as much attention. and they almost throw their hands up in dismay at since I don't understand it, here you handle it and take it off my plate.
And just tell me what I'm going to pay.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
most people, 80% of people get a refund. So, but yeah, tell me whether I get a refund or pay, and tell me the amount.
And yet they think the refund is actually something they're getting as a benefit from the government. It's
Yeah, most people don't understand that most of the refund they comes from a refund of the taxes that they overpaid during the year.
yeah. And so the process is we collect more than we need and we'll give you a refund if you fill out the form properly and you get a tax preparer that can do it properly, you'll get a refund if you've overpaid. So
That's
we of course want to talk a little bit more about what you have moved into, the other things that you talk about, building empires, um, helping entrepreneurs discover how to become CEOs and building their empires. But I wanted to just go back to the taxes for a second. Our theory is that if people could find a way to reduce their taxes and understood it, they would use it. But we are focusing on a section of the tax code 664 just as a way to mimic what people know as numbers, like a 401k, for example. Everybody knows what that is, but they don't know why. So we want people to look at a number like 664 and to understand that it's a good thing to be able to use it in the future. So in your experience working with CEOs now, working with entrepreneurs, working with business leaders, the tax problem in the country and the deficit problem in the country is real. How do you view the tax element as a part of that? In other words, um, can we tax the population to the extent that we need to in order to solve the government's problems?
that's outside of my realm of expertise. What I like to say is uh, the government makes the rules and the laws, and I just know how to use them to the benefit my customers. But I would say that even though it's outside my expertise, I have an opinion, and my opinion is that government is wasteful. 50% of the money that government raises is or spends rather is wasteful. So as long as governments govern in that manner, they can never tax enough to pay for their mistakes.
And so if the government is supporting, this is the thing that I have the hardest time with, government supporting non-governmental organizations. Um, that and taking tax dollars to do that. Because even before they changed the tax law, where the tax deduction for charitable giving at least was of some value to people who are in the lower and middle class, lower middle class, or were earners but not super earners. They were people using standard tax deductions today and don't worry about the charitable gift. But when the charitable gift, when the principle of giving to charity was of value, nobody knew about doing it. Nobody would do it except the ultra wealthy. And the idea that government will take tax dollars and then give them to charity rather than advising you to give to charity to solve the same problem just blows my mind. How from you're an experienced person in the business world, and your opinion of something like that is valuable. What do you think the government is doing with that? Why do they do that? Why would they turn around what is given to us and make it into something it's not?
I think that again, um, government is incredibly wasteful and it's incredibly biased, and it's self-serving. One of, for example, at one time there was there was a question on a deduction on mortgage interest, and the rule was that you could only deduct interest on mortgages of under $1 million, and where 98% of the population had revenue of under $1 million, it didn't pass because the congressman mostly had revenue of over $100 million. So they tend not to be altruistic. They tend not to be unselfish. They tend to be biased and do things for themselves.
Thank you for that. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that there's too much power is vested in them with regard to the taxation and use of the money the way they want to do it. My guest is John Hewitt, and John was the founder of Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, and then he founded Liberty Tax Service. I think, is that correct?
That's correct.
And with over 6,000 offices, you sold your interest in Liberty for nearly $500 million a while ago. I hope that created a good endowment for you, and hope you did it tax smart. That's a question. Question is, how many people know how to do that? And so, John and your partners and friends are helping entrepreneurs now discover how to become CEOs, building their empires for the King of Kings. He's the author of the fascinating book, I Compete, and the CEO of Loyalty Brands. So tell me a little bit about that transition. You've now gone into this area. Why?
Yeah, my first two ventures were focused on income tax, and they were franchise organizations. And after selling the second brand, Liberty Tax, we decided that I'd like to have a multiple number of brands and be able to help more people. My goal is to change lives, help people, and doing it just in one focus industry was not enough for us. And we saw some opportunity to mentor and help develop chains of other brands. Most important to us and most fun is our pet brand. I love the pet industry. I've learned to love the industry over the last 3 years, and our fastest growing brand is mobile pet grooming called Zoom and Groom.
Zoom and Groom. Love that. So it's a mobile pet spa or mobile pet services?
Mobile pet grooming. It's just they do nails and ears and groom the dogs. And and 10 to 15% of our animals are cats. We groom cats too.
Wow. I'm surprised they let you do that.
I was going to say that should be fun.
Yeah. Okay. So we interviewed someone who was from the veterinary school. There's a dearth or a desert of vets. Do you provide any vet service, or is it strictly the grooming?
It's everything is just related to grooming.
What do you see in the future? Is that Loyalty Brands? It's a conglomeration of brands. Is that what you're saying?
It is. We have 8 different brands in 8 different industries, and we're looking to grow all of it. We have home inspections, business brokers, the buying and selling businesses versus buying it like a realtor, buying and selling personal homes. We have a roofing company. We have a staffing service. We have a number of different brands that work together and do cross marketing.
And is the reason for that the cross marketing? Is that what you find to be the common?
Exactly. For example, our biggest grooming franchise has about 6,000 customers. They all need tax returns. And our biggest tax office has about 7,000 customers, and 70% of them own pets. So we opportunity to cross market our services to our databases of each organization.
Well, that's a very interesting concept. That maybe there's something in the future for Endow America to be a franchise where people can go to learn how to to create endowment for the community and themselves, using simple guidance from we have a new term that we're using, which is an endowment engineer. Endowment engineers are people who can help you create an endowment for yourself so that you have adequate income to live on in the future using favorable tax parts of the code, and then leave that endowment to the community.
That actually might be a franchisable concept in the future.
I'd like to talk to you about that. That would be good. That's one way to spread the word, for sure.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
When you bring in capitalism, then it really grows exponentially.
Yes, capitalism. Wonderful term that nobody wants to talk about anymore. Yeah, they don't teach it in schools. Nobody knows about capitalism. The whole concept of capital and how you get it and how you can use it and how you can grow it and all that good stuff is.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There are the four most important things in life they don't teach you. They don't in school anymore. They don't teach you about God. They don't teach you about how to be a great spouse or a relationship. They don't teach you how to raise children, and they don't teach you about taking care of yourselves financially and through a capitalistic rewarding life. So those are the four most important things in life, and they leave you on your own.
So the King of Kings, for the King of Kings, is that a religious reference?
The King of Kings would be God, for sure.
Okay. So what you're saying is that God needs to be in building our empires.
Absolutely. And I've been blessed. I built two of the top 100 largest retail chains in this country, the only person ever to do that. And they had $1.5 billion of value. I've been blessed by God. I just didn't do that on my own.
Yeah, the higher power is extremely important and often taken for granted, but it's there in all of us. We just need to be able to find it and exercise it properly. And I appreciate your being on today, John, and having a discussion with you about this, because human kindness stems from that as well. And what we're dealing with is the love of mankind. Philanthropy is a gemstone of a human, and we need to be able to polish that more and have people become more philanthropic and properly do it to benefit themselves and the community, and also benefits the government in the long run. That's why they did it. They knew what was going to happen in the future, and we're at the future now. They did that 50 years ago in 1969 when they created these sections of the tax code, and they've not told anybody about them. So it's unfortunate, but we're going to correct that, and would love to talk to you further about that idea of expanding this concept. Maybe there is a franchise available of this type of thing. It would make a lot of sense. My guest is John Hewitt. Thank you very much for joining us on Route 664, the road to human kindness, John.
Thank you, Les. Have a wonderful day.
Yep. And we're going to just hear from him a little bit about a radio station that plays the greatest music and gives you good feelings and also gives you a lot of great information. We'll be right back.
Happy song. What song puts you in the best mood? Or if you're in a bad mood, what gets you out of it?
I think I have so many, but when I was in college, I was working at University of Buffalo, and the Beatles came out with a song called "The Taxman," and
yes,
so I had a nickname in college. I was the Taxman.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, I used to play that on Funny Money.
I know.
All the time, remember?
I do remember.
Yeah, I'm the Taxman. All right, John. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you guys.
You ever just want to tune out the world and relax? Then you've come to the right place. At Route664.org, we've got great music that will keep you entertained for hours and uplifting conversation that will make you feel good about yourself and the world. So come on in and take a load off. We won't judge here. Route664.org.
Camera. No, never mind. You don't need to raise the camera because I'm here. So that was John Hewitt, an expert in the franchising of tax solution, resources for the public. Everybody They say the only thing you can't avoid is death and taxes is something that we have to consider. So our philosophy, my philosophy about taxes is that you should pay the least that you have to, and that's the same philosophy that the Honorable Learned Hand handed down one of his very famous tax court decisions, where he said that you're not duty bound to pay the most that the law extracts. You have the right and privilege to reduce your taxes as much as legally possible. And the problem is that most people don't know that they can reduce their taxes, and most people don't know how to reduce their taxes. And that's why it's important to work with people in your advisory group who know how to utilize everything that's available. And some of it is not very well organized or well developed in a lot of the other professions. And so a new profession has been created, which is the endowment engineer. We actually created that as Endow America. And the endowment engineer's job is to engineer your endowment. Simple. What does that mean? It means that you have a target. Everybody has a retirement target. Everybody has an amount that they're going to need later in life that they want to have available at all times, regardless of any conditions that occur. In other words, a sustainable, guaranteed income that is an endowment that usually comes from capital that you've accumulated over life, whether it's in the form of real estate or it's investments or whatever. Something is generating income, and that income is what you're going to live on. So creating or engineering the endowment is very important from this perspective. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You can do it as an uninformed taxpayer, or you can do it as an informed taxpayer. The difference is that it's easier to do when you're an informed taxpayer, because when you can eliminate tax from the process, when you can do what's necessary to build your endowment without having to pay tax, and also reducing tax in other ways, it makes it easier to build the amount that you need. Or, put differently, if you pay less tax, you'll have more income. Therefore, your endowment can be greater. With the same asset base, if you do things tax-informed as opposed to doing them uninformed, you'll end up with more from the same base. And that's the purpose of endowment engineering, is to wend your way through, it's like a train. A train engineer takes a train from point A to point B and does it in the best way possible. The same thing is true with an endowment engineer. It takes your endowment base and engineers it to the end point of your endowment base so that you have the endowment that you need at the time that you want it. That's what your target is. In order to get to the target, though, you need to know how to do that in a very favorable way, in the most favorable way. So, for example, if you can avoid the capital gains tax on a transaction, you have appreciated stock or appreciated real estate. Appreciated means you were successful. You bought something, it went up, and you made money with it. Government governments take more than one bite of the apple. They take a bite of the apple when you earn the money, and then they take a bite of the apple when you invest the money, you make money with the money. So in that case, just let's look at what a capital gain is. If you have something you've invested in and it makes money, and now you want to get the money out of it because it's got more capital and you want to use it somewhere else, when you stop that particular investment, the government says, okay, did you make money on that? And if you made money on it, they tax you. And so if you can move that money without paying the tax, it's better, because you don't give the government 20 or 25% of it or 40% of it in some instances. So you have much more money to work with. If you have more money to work with, then you have more money to produce income. And that's what endowment engineering is really all about. How do you get from point A to point B with the least amount of tax possible, and using the sections of the tax code that government gave us to do that? A 401k is just a section of the tax code that the government gave us, which says to an employer that you can increase your employee's retirement income by using a 401k plan. A 401k plan is a plan that's used using 401k. So there's actually a 401k engineer somewhere
who is engineering how that 401k works, how to install it, how to make it work, how to get it to the end point where it actually works for the employer and the employee, and the employees can count on that to retire, and eventually that's how it works. So an endowment engineer is doing the same thing, except that instead of using 401k, they use 3 other sections of the tax code that involve philanthropy. And that's the beauty of this, because when we were talking to John Hewitt, caring about the community is part of the human kindness element. And government was really smart. The Congress was brilliant when they created these things, because they said, how we see in the future people are going to live longer. We see in the future that there's going to be more people, the population is growing. It was interesting. I was watching a recording of the debate between John Kennedy and Richard Nixon in the 1960 election for president. One of the debates, and they were talking about billions of dollars. That the deficit was going to be billions of dollars, or that the budget was billions of dollars. And now it's trillions of dollars. It's the same government, but it's much bigger. And my thought was, at the time, that we're dealing with something that has changed drastically over time, but changed in a lot of different ways, in the sense of how many more people there are in the country, in the sense of how much more need there is, or whatever the equation is, because one thing is directly related to the other. And so if they saw this coming and they said, okay, what are we going to do to help solve that problem when it arises? And what they did was they said, we need to build the charitable sector, because government cannot do the things that it's doing now. It cannot support non-governmental organizations, and it cannot do things that are better served in the local community and better served by the charities in local community. And that has to do with healthcare, it has to do with education, it has to do with senior care, child care, it has to do with even the arts and culture, and other things that the community needs based on the community's population. What do people need in the community? And that's better, because the federal government has a hard time trying to figure out what you need in your community. They think they know what they need in your community because they think you need the same things every other community. The problem is that it has to go through their funnel and then come back to you in pieces. And you can do that more directly if you do endowment engineering. Endowment engineering enables you to build an endowment for yourself and then to leave an endowment to the community. And that's a really valuable service that an engineer can provide, that an endowment engineer can provide for you. And I also think that this can be combined with chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce are vehicles that have been in existence for a very long time, that are actually used in many cases improperly, and don't really do the things that they're supposed to do. But it's supposed to unite the commercial community and the consumer community. It's supposed to make the community a better place to live in. Those are functions of a chamber of commerce. They're also nonprofit organizations, but they're 501c6 organizations. They're business organizations based on membership, and they're dealing with business owners, and business owners are best served by endowment engineers. That's just the way it is. And the reason is that most business owners, they own a business. First of all, that's an asset. And that asset, at some point in time, the business owner sees that asset as changing. And when it changes, how is it going to change? What is the plan for that business when they built it? So you build a very successful, I don't care if it's a donut shop. You got a donut shop, you've built it for years, you've worked at it for 20 years, you've employed other people now to work it for a while, and now you've reached a point where the donut shop is not appealing to you anymore because you want to change the nature of the asset. You think the donuts are going out of style. There's another donut shop that makes better donuts. You got people running the place that you are having difficulty keeping them. You don't want to spend the time. All these things go into what makes a business owner want to sell his business or change from where he is. Well, when he looks to sell that business, that means that he's going to possibly have a capital gain, because most businesses start you go and you create a corporation and you spend $150 to create a corporation, and that's what you actually invested in that corporation, and then you add to it whatever you're buying in inventory, you're putting into the store, but you're not including goodwill, and you're not including a lot of things that are included in the valuation of the business. So when somebody wants to buy your business, they're not just going to buy your supplies, they're going to buy a going business, and that has a value that's greater than what you put into it, and therefore you have a capital gain, and you have to pay capital gains tax. So when you transition a business, that's when an endowment engineer helps. That's one of the ways that they can help. But business owners also own other assets. And so anytime they're going to change one of those assets and they have a capital gain, they can do something about that. Maybe they have a good year business-wise and they want to reduce their income tax. An endowment engineer helps to produce that tax deduction. This is Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness, and the Road to Human Kindness goes through endowment engineers. They are the best guides to get you from one point to the other on the Road to Human Kindness. And that's what we talk about here on Route 664. Tune into our radio station, get the app, Route 664 Radio, in the App Store, and listen 24/7 to great music, and you'll learn more about what we're talking about. Have a great week.